Okay, let's do this. Item 2, presentation, discussion, and possible action regarding bulk waste collection events. Should we get a staff presentation?
Yes. So I've got a little PowerPoint here. This is basically the same presentation we gave in 2021. And this item is presented at the request of Mayor Sandoval. In December of 2021, the council requested revisiting the budget, operations, and schedule for bulk waste pickup. And following the presentation and much discussion, the council landed on 2 pickups per year and thought that was what the budget could handle at the time, along with 2 free landfill days. The bulk waste pickup now alternates starting between the north and south sides of town. Next slide, please. In this presentation, we'll talk about operations, revenue versus cost comparisons, utility bill breakdown comparisons of other cities, cost of bulk waste pickup, and other ways to dispose of trash and leaves. Next slide. And over the years, we've just received several. These are the basic themes that we hear. One is, but I have so many leaves, more big trash would help me get rid of them. And then another, I don't use big trash, why should I pay for other people's garbage? 3, I want monthly big trash to get rid of my garbage, I have a big family. And then 4, I don't want trash on the curbs, it's unsightly and makes our community look dirty. So those are kind of the general overarching themes that we as staff tend to hear. Regarding operations, bulk trash is picked up by parks and streets employees during the shoulder seasons. Once staff is mobilized, we try to knock it out as fast as possible so we can return to our regular duties. And when I say the shoulder season, that's the least busy time that we have for parks and streets employees who pick up that trash, because garbage routes still have to be run by sanitation employees. So when you think of big trash, you think it's the sanitation employees that's picking it up, but it's not. It's actually our parks and streets. And then we have a sanitation cost revenue analysis from the FY26 budget. Once we pay for the actual sanitation budget, then the only way we can pay for our operations in a city, because we only receive sales tax pretty much as our base revenue to pay things. Well, our base revenue from sales tax is not enough to cover operations, and that's the case with many, many cities. We're not alone. Every city I've ever worked for, most cities in the state of Oklahoma do get part of the utility revenue to pay for general operations. So that being said, there's a breakdown, a third public works finance and admin, fleet maintenance, and then big trash labor. And then there's a third general fund subsidy to pay for things like police and firemen and community development, administration. So that total cost is $3,041,774. This year, our revenue versus cost, we are actually in the hole, $37,584. Now that won't continue because we do have our CPI adjustment each year, which will bring us back to where we need to be, hopefully without a budget adjustment. And if we need a budget adjustment to bring it to normal, we will come back to the council to discuss rates. The Bethany Public Works Authority income expense is better. And if you look at that, our surplus is $66,998. And that is to be utilized for future debt service payments. Currently, people have often said, how can you keep doing what you do? So we purchase very little capital expenses for a city of our size, and we have salary savings that helps keep us from being in a deficit situation. And then I've also got a slide that has utility billing comparisons using single-family residential with an average of 5,000 gallons water usage, 2 polycarts, and this is the bill breakdown. And I wanted to address why we compare to other cities. Some people say, well, we're not this other city. Well, a comparison with other cities is done not only to see where we stand in relationship to surrounding cities, but to see if we're capturing the true associated cost for inflation, equipment, fuel, etc. This comparison is a bellwether for us to see if we're actually capturing expenditures or if we might be overcharging. Simply checks and balances is why we compare to other cities. But if you look at this slide, you've got water in the far left-hand corner, the cost of water, sewer in the middle column, and garbage on the right-hand column. And you can see these various comparisons. Bethany's kind of in the middle of this group that I've chosen. I did recently just get War Acres' new polycart charges, and they have done quarterly pickup in the past. They're going to spring and fall also, because it just was not sustainable for them to continue doing quarterly pickup. So, like I said, if you have any questions on this slide, I ask you to hold your questions until the end, but happy to answer those questions. And then we've got a sales tax comparison. I've got 3 slides on this, but I think this was the most telling slide here as to how we pay for our operations. Once again, we have, if you look at Bethany, we are the lowest of all the cities that are compared here, including Yukon, Mustang, Duncan, Sepulveda, Del City, Durant, Sand Springs, El Reno, Bethany, Altus, McAllister, Ada, and War Acres. And we chose most of these cities because they are more similar to Bethany in size and population. And then War Acres we put in there because they're our neighbors. And so we bring in about $6 million a year in sales tax. When you add use tax in, that's about $7 million. So that's just a comparison there with the other cities as well. I'm going to skip these next 2 slides. They don't offer anything really else unless we go into the weeds on sales tax. This is probably the most telling slide of all, is the bulk waste event cost estimates. Like I said, the labor is supplied by parks and streets during shoulder seasons. If we do more than 2 bulk waste days per year, I would suggest adding more employees, probably 3. And that would be an additional cost of $150,000 annually to add that next event. So if you look right now, and I'm just going to focus on the total column, it's $222,000 if we do 1 event, $439,000 for 2 events, and that's where we are right now. If we go to 3 events, it's $665,000 plus a recommended extra $150,000 for 3 more employees. And I did want to point out the fuel equipment cost per bulk waste event are figured on industry standards, which are FEMA uses for equipment and usage and depreciation. And then labor, like I said, we do use our parks and streets employees, but that there is still a cost to that because we're not doing work we're doing work, but we're putting off work that would normally be done by parks and streets during that time. And the next slide. We do have other current options for trash disposal. Big trash is not your only option to get rid of large pieces of trash or leaves or things like that. So we have residential bulk trash that is brought to Public Works. If you bring it to Public Works, the cost will be added to your customer utility bill. So a pickup truck filled up to bed level is $15. A pickup truck filled above bed level is $20. And 1 filled above cab level is $25. Trailer is $7 per cubic yard. We also have residential individual bulk trash picked up at your curbside. You don't have to wait for big trash to come pick it up, but you do have to pay for it for your trash. So minimum charge would be up to 4 cubic yards for $35. And then each additional cubic yard over the first 4 is $10 per cubic yard. We also have free residential landfill days 2 times a year. That's where you take your own trash to the Oklahoma City dump. We also have free household hazardous waste disposal, and that's where you take it to Oklahoma City and to the facility located at 1621 South Portland. That's for things like your antifreeze, your paint, just any chemical that you might have to dispose of. We do offer that fee-free to the citizen. And then you can also buy extra poly carts available for a small monthly fee. And then there are still other options for trash disposal and recycling. Recycle by having a yard sale. You're allowed so many by permit each year. And we also have a free one that doesn't count against your yard sale count. So a citywide yard sale is permit free one time per year. And then advertise items on free social media and giveaway pages. There's recycle drop points all over this city. There's some at the YMCA. There's some at various churches. There's also an Uber type recycling model available on our website. And that is called Recyclops. It's a subscription where you can just subscribe to have your recycling items picked up. And then we also have a partnership with Waracres to drop off your recycling once a month for free. And as we move forward, this is kind of a leftover slide, but these are things you might want to talk about in the future, would be for a sustainable budget. And one of those is a fee for big trash service on utility bills for everyone. If we were to take that big trash out of our bundled trash right now, our bundled trash fee, it would be $5.30 per resident currently per month. If 3 pickups per year, that would bring it to almost $10 a month per person. And we could increase budget and fees, adding additional bulk waste pickup dates. It may require additional employees, as I said, and it would increase sanitation fee for all residential customers. And that was just kind of my quick overview and education on big trash, how we got here, what we're currently doing, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. I do have some experts in the room. I've got Phil and Michael, so they can help me out if I don't know the answer.
Is there any discussion?
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're recognized.
Thank you for this report to the city manager and the staff that put this together. It's very enlightening to have 2 trash pickups a year and then have availability of any trash pickup anytime during the year if you have more than what the 2 bulk trash. The cost was enlightening to see what the actual cost and the extra in adding an additional bulk waste. And I'm just not willing to raise rates on our 7,000 plus customers to just benefit a handful of people, or maybe not even, or more than a handful, but benefit others that would want that 3rd or 4th additional bulk waste. I'm just not willing to raise rates on all of our customers.
Through the mayor. Michael, would you go back to the cost comparison slide for cities? And what I wanted to point out is that Edmond does not have a bulk waste pickup day. You have to call a month in advance to get your trash picked up, and then they'll pick it up for a fee.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're recognized.
Yeah, my eyes were opened too with the cost of this. I mean, we're paying about $450,000 a year to pick up trash. And I am not in favor of adding another one. And I may be in the minority here, but I would be in favor of reducing it to 1 or cutting it out altogether. Because I think there's plenty of opportunities and options for people to have their own trash picked up. And I don't see any reason why people shouldn't pay to have their own big trash picked up. You can take it up to the Public Works and dump it in a dumpster up there. There's a couple of free landfill days where you can take it down to the Oklahoma City dump. You can have an extra poly card and cut up limbs and do all sorts of things, get rid of it that way. But I think we could use that money to repair streets, to do a lot of other things besides dispose of people's trash. And I personally don't like the looks of it sitting around on the curbs for a couple of weeks, twice a year. So that'd be my position on it.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're recognized.
Ken Smart actually stole my idea. No, I agree with you and think that if we did reduce it to 1, considering all the things that we do have in place, like you just mentioned, and you can pay a fee and have your big bulk trash picked up. But I would like to ask, would once a year be something that would be helpful? Or would it just be, okay, we've increased the load now of trash because people are going to save up for an entire year versus, 2 times a year?
Through the mayor to Councilmember Makarowski. I would guess, labor-wise, we would love to have it once a year. I suspect it would take longer to pick up because I think there would be a larger load. I'm not sure if we haven't reached the sweet spot for the city of Bethany at 2 per year with the 2 landfill days. Did I answer all your questions? Do you have another question in there?
Did I have another question?
I can't remember if I answered every question you asked.
I think you did. So you said we're at the sweet spot basically and probably should maintain the status quo.
Cost-wise, we can afford it budgetarily. I believe the public wants, a good portion of the public would like to see it continue. And I don't think they would, this is just from interactions with people, I don't think the public would like us to take one away.
Oh, I heard the collective scream when I said that.
I think that was me you heard screaming. Well, I do not think that right now is the time to add another big trash day. I do want to point out, while some may not need big trash, not everyone has the means. We have an older population. And sometimes they need to clear out things in their home and they need to be able to put those things out to have someone come get it. They don't have a truck or they don't have someone to help them get those things out of their home. And so while I think that it's noble that, that people don't need this service, I think that we need to consider everyone in their situation, even though we can't do it now. I hope that in the future our income will increase and that it is something that we can provide.
And there is the intention, but based on the budget, the numbers are pretty grand. But I did want to ask, how would it look if we shifted the second date in the fall to after the leaves fall for more later in the year? And I do have an understanding that it's very intentional that you will do it when you're least busy. But I just want to see the dynamics of how that would look.
Okay, I'll be happy to look into that with Public Works Director and get back with you on that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you recognize?
Number of things on this. First off, if you don't like 2, whether you want 1 or 4 or what, you can blame me. I made that motion when that was enacted. I like 2 a lot. Because it allows us to, as the city manager explained, have the personnel that we use for that in those shoulder seasons when the responsibilities that they have are not as intensive at other points of the year. When I first came on the council, we had a financial crisis. And part of the reason that we had a financial crisis, and it was something that built for this particular aspect, I think built for a long time, was that we had a lot of employees. And personnel is about 80% of your city budget. If we add bulk trash days and we have to add personnel to account for that, that's hitting us in the softest spot that we have in our city budget. And as the city manager pointed out in the information that she presented to us, other cities have deeper pockets than we do. We don't just have low revenue in general. We have among the lowest sales tax revenue per capita in the state. And in some ways, there's some good about that, but when you want to pay for stuff, it does make it really, really hard. And part of that is stuff that happened years before any of us got up here with the commercial corridor along the Northwest Expressway and the commercial corridor along Reno. And we don't have a piece of the expressway like War Acres does. So we just have some geographical limitations with that, and we have to stay within our means. So I think we're using, I agree with the city manager that we're in the sweet spot with using our personnel and resources in the most efficient way possible with what we have. I think that as long as we can continue to do that and it makes sense, that we should stay right where we're at. And I would be very reluctant to change what we're doing.
Is that a motion?
There shouldn't be any motion necessary to stay with what we're doing, so we don't need a motion.
Yes, you're recognized.
After that, I just want to reiterate, I do think that it's important that we do look at timing. As you stated, I know, for example, I breadcrumb my leaves into my poly cart week after week in November. And there are people who may not be able to do that. That's a lot. I mean, that's a lot of bags. But then also, I only have 2 trees in my yard. This is a beautiful area with tons of trees. And I think if we want to maintain that look that we have, which, I mean, people come to the side of town and they are amazed at the difference. This is probably one of the few areas where you can actually see the seasons change here in Oklahoma City and see it well. And so I think it's important that we look at that timing so that people won't decide that they are going to tear down those trees or that it's not worth it for them.
And I do have a question for Elizabeth or probably Phil. But how much does, whenever it comes to bulk waste, how much does this delay like the regular public works duty?
I'm going to need to defer to Phil on this one. And the question was, how much of a delay how does this affect your public works staff when we have to pick up bulk waste?
And to follow up on that, Phil, it's how could we better support you all as a department if we do just keep the 2 bulk waste dates?
Well,
You
it's
talk directly into the
it's
microphone.
it's trading tit for tat. It's not that we don't have anything we could be doing in our primary duties during a bulk pickup event. It's just, as a city manager explained, that it is the lesser of the loads that time of year. In the spring, we try to recommend dates for the bulk pickup event also around the spring holidays. No one wants to see trash out on the curb on Easter and things like that. So you got to take that into consideration. Same thing in the fall. No one wants to have relatives coming in for Thanksgiving and have piles of trash at the curb. So that's considered in picking dates. Also, early spring, our mowing crews, both the street and the park, they're the departments that mow the city. So we want to knock out that spring event before they get on the mowers. And before we mow, we also have a extreme problem that you all are aware of called the sandburr, the stickers in town. And that requires a preventative or pre-emergent applications of herbicide. And so my park supervisor is rushing to get those applications down either just before or just after the spring bulk pickup in the fall. So those are the big things we have going that time of year. What we put off is more patching streets, inventories of street signs around town, a lot of tree work in our parks. We have citizens that are concerned that they're looking up in the trees, and we kind of have to lower our expectations on that. We still perform those, but just not perform as heavy because we're spending 2 weeks an event. We had those twice a year. That's a solid month. But these guys aren't doing their primary duties. So that's what I'm offering you right now. That's our answer. We're not putting off. It's just the best we can do right now is where these events are and what we have to work with.
And we do receive complaints during those 2 weeks. Especially if we've had some rain. We get complaints on the cemetery not being mowed or the medians not being mowed. And some of those complaints have actually come from council members in the past. So, it's probably because you had a resident that complained that median was not mowed. But that would be the reason typically why is we're doing our other duties as assigned.
Right, and I'll add, we kind of have high expectations, and we don't meet our, in Public Works and our supervisors, and we don't meet our expectations as far as getting back to the same patch of grass to mow as often as we should. We would like to cut mowing cycles. We have the talent and the knowledge on how to properly apply turf chemicals. That if you got rid of all your winter weeds in the spring, you would be not mowing your grass for a month. You should save a month there. So there's all these programs that we'd like to elevate that we cannot, and it's things like not having enough time during the year, during the proper time of the year, to develop those projects. So, but I tell you that people love big trash, and I really like the balance of sweat equity. We sweat to pick them up, and then they can sweat to take it to the dump. And speaking of some ingenuity, we were just amazed a couple of events ago when we started seeing U-Haul vans and U-Haul rented pickup trucks coming in the public works yard. Those folks that don't have a truck or something to haul in, they're going and renting a van, or they're getting family members to rent a van. So they're finding a way. Now, ideally, from my perspective, I'd love to see everything out at the landfill. I mean, it requires the citizens to put in the sweat equity and haul their stuff out there. The city picks up the tab, and you can look at the numbers, and it's a lot less expensive. Same goal, same result. It's just that naturally it's easier for the citizens' point of view for us to pick it up at the curb. But so we've got half and half now. I think it's a good balance.
Thank you, Phil.
Madam Mayor, can I ask a question?
Yes, you're recognized.
I talked to Elizabeth about maybe cutting our big trash into, it took 2 weeks this time to cutting it to where we put out the trash like this time on the south end this week, and then wherever that dividing line might be, putting out the next week for the north end, so that the north end or the south end, depending on which time of year it is, that it's not out so long.
You bet. And that'll increase the curb appeal problem for sure.
Yes, and the trash from blowing around. I didn't know if that would be a possibility. Did we talk about that, or?
We did talk about it, and I started looking at dates into how that could be possible. So right now, the trash is supposed to not be put out until the Friday before the event, which most people put theirs out early. We do green tag people when they do, and sometimes they end up leaving it out there and we pick it up and charge them. But so they're supposed to put it out the Friday before the event, which starts on the Monday. The only way I could see that it would not impede our pickup would be to allow people to put the first half on Friday and maybe the second half on the Monday. But then those people who put it on the Monday are going to be mad because they don't have the weekend. So, because we're moving pretty fast, we don't want to have to stop in the middle of the pickup and extend the time of the event, which would cause problems with mobilization and demobilization of the event. So it's possible. It's very possible, but I don't know that we would get the response that we wanted from the customers if they couldn't put it out until maybe that Sunday night or that Monday morning before pickup.
I would think we could come up with a date. I'm not sure what they are, but just say from the north end. If we started at the north end, we know that they're going to make it so far in a week. I mean, given.
No, we don't know.
Well,
it's just based on the load and how much trash is coming into this town for the event.
If you started at the north end and you make it all the way to 23rd, you're not going to make 23rd on the first, almost regardless. Right. And then the second week you'd put it out. The people would put out on by Monday morning. I would think we could do something to help the trash not being out so long.
I think you'd have to decide on what's acceptable based on past experience of the time frame it takes to run a big trash event. And as I mentioned, that's all based on the load of trash that's at the curb. We ran through this town in as little as 7 days, and I've heard at one time it took 6 weeks to get through it because of weather events and things going on. 2 weeks. And I know Ms. Larson thought it was pretty quick. That was actually about a day and a half to 2 days longer than it took us previously. So it just matters on how much stuff is at the curb and if weather and we can't.
Whether the equipment's working.
Yes, exactly. I was going to say, yeah, we gotta stay on top of that too.
I had one other comment on the leaves. I put leaves out every Monday morning when the leaves start falling. I would say that people that have 2 trash carts, which is probably average, one of those is at least half empty or empty, and they don't even put it out a lot of times. I put out leaves starting probably in the next week or so. Both of mine are going to be completely full. And if you put out a little each week, you're going to get rid of them. And I've got quite a few leaves. So that's just a suggestion, is use what we have to the fullest.
You bet. And then the city has done its legwork and homework on that too, with often a really reasonable second poly cart. I believe it's $2.58 if you have 1 cart and you want to. It bounces up a little bit for a 3rd cart, but they also offer seasonal carts for 3 months. Runs you about $7.73 per cart per month. But that would be also an option for leaves. You've got leaves coming down. And that's also something we originally thought of. The city manager, she approached me about, what time of year we want these events. We sat down and we talked about, the leaf committee and what they discovered, and my knowledge of trees was, if you can have that thing in the fall when some of the trees have dropped their leaves, then the people would be collecting those leaves. And then like the oaks that hold on to them forever, that would be kind of a spring thing. So they're the last to drop their leaves and then the first to kick on. So, the city has tried to cover all the bases, the wants and the desires.
And I believe the reason we ended up with the fall pickup being where it was because of Halloween, Thanksgiving, all the holidays. So that's, I think, where we ended up with the date was because of the holiday seasons. We didn't want the bags of leaves out with the trick-or-treaters.
Right.
Yes, you recognize. Were you going to say something?
She's psychic. I just want to say I was around during that 6-week event, and thank you so much for getting it down to 2 weeks. The dead grass, the stuff flying around, kids walking to school where there are no sidewalks, and they normally walk on the grass now, having to walk in the streets. So instead of stickers, they're risking getting hit by cars. And so I just want to say you guys do an amazing job. Because I remember that, and I appreciate you guys.
The operations have tightened up quite a bit. The city used to pick up just anything was put at the curb, and we had rules in place that some things we should charge for that wasn't being charged for, wasn't being collected. We got support from the city manager. We got support from the council, because eventually people are really upset. It's going to rise to the council level. So when we all band together and say, we got to do what's right, you tighten things up, and then that pain that the public feels, they get over that. And it's being proved when we go out and we kind of scout around how the trash is stacking up out there. They got it down. They know exactly how to make the fewest cubic yards out of the biggest pile, because they know they're going to be charged over so many cubic yards. And man, most everybody in town gets those piles tight. Those people that have it out at the wrong time, they get a green tag. That gives them a chance to pull it back. The rules are in place and being enforced, and that's what makes that work. That's what creates the efficiency. And I really do believe we are operating as efficiently as we can. I've had an analogy when we were talking earlier about, labor costs. Every governing board that I've worked under has always said, you want to cut the fat. And then you have the talk, well, if the city needs to be ran like a business. And you have the argument, well, the city's not a private sector business. We have different rules of engagement. But when it comes down to it has to be the governing board believing and the city manager believing that we have cut all the fat we can. Okay, and that means we're operating efficiently. And that's my job, her job, to convince you guys that that's what we're doing and offer all the proof we can for that. Because once you cut all the fat, then you're cutting into muscle. And if you're cutting a muscle, then the limb doesn't work that well. It doesn't work as efficiently as if you left that muscle alone. I've seen it where they cut bone. We just lose the appendage and everything goes to our hell in a handbasket. So I do believe we've got the rules in place. We're operating as efficient as we can with the resources we have. And bless all the employees that come to work every day and bust their to get things done. this is the time of year that gets frustrating for me as a manager, because I've got employees that have worked here so long that they've accrued so much vacation time that they're not taking off during what we call the busy season. And now it's time for them to go burn that vacation time. And that's not us saying you can't take off, if they're choosing not to do that themselves because they want to perform their duties to the best of their ability for this town. Amazing people we work with here.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're recognized.
So one of the things that I wanted to, a couple of things I wanted to hit on is if you follow the social media, if you follow the city's social media where they track the big trash day, the progress of how it goes, and I know that people do this, I've done it. If it starts on the north side of town, I know they're not going to be at my house on Monday morning. So I've got some time. I'm not the only one who can figure that out. There's people all over town who follow the social media who can do a little bit of what Councilor Faulkner's talking about on their own, and they just take the risk that they mistime it, of course. But most of the time, you can stay ahead of that because of the updates that we get on that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is that if we have an event where we have some sort of issue where we have to have the guys out picking up stuff, which we did have, I think right after Ms. Gray came on board with the ice storm. I don't remember how long that took, but that was, I think everybody remembers that was a nightmare dealing with that. And, so we have the set bulk trash pickup that we have, but if we have an emergency like that where we have to deal with it, that was a rolling several week emergency. It took us, 6 months, however long it took.
About 6 months.
Yeah. That falls on those same guys, and that's not something that we charged extra for or anything like that, and wouldn't. And the other thing you mentioned, this is a tangent, but you mentioned the pre-emergent for the stickers. How long have we been doing that?
We've been doing it properly for this is our third season, which means you've got to get that down when the soil temperature reaches a certain stage, and then it needs to be watered in. So you're kind of hoping that, Mother Nature helps you out there. And the deal about those sandburrs is they can lay dormant in the ground for up to 7 years and still be viable. So pre-emergent works by the ones that germinate, and as soon as that first little primordial root comes out, that chemical takes them out. And so if you've got sandburrs in the ground, it could take up to 7 years to start getting control. And that's not with considering how many animals and the wind blowing new seeds in and that type of thing. It's a chronic vigilance you need to it and adhere to the spray schedule. But we've got the equipment and we've got the staff that can get out there and knock out all the parks in about 2 weeks.
And it would be correct to say that we're only doing that in the property that the city is taking care of.
Correct.
And if we screw it up 1 year, we're back at square one. Would that be right?
How define screwing up? Give me an example.
Like if we don't get it applied when we're in the proper way, when we're
if we don't get it applied to the proper time of year, you're wasting chemical. If Mother Nature or your irrigation system doesn't help water it in, after a certain time, the chemical becomes non-effective. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
Yes, you're
Yeah, I just have one more thing. We have a lot of good options, I think, for people who want to get trash picked up, and I don't know how well. I know it's probably on our website. I don't know if we ever do anything on the water utility bills that are sent out, but I think if we can do something to make people more aware, just like Councilman Trena was talking about. Older people don't have the ability to take their stuff to the dump, but they could call the city and have them come out and pick it up. And that's a pretty inexpensive way to get rid of it. That probably, if they took it to the dump themselves, it would probably cost them that much. So I don't know what we're doing, but maybe we can make an effort to make the citizens more aware of these other options.
Any further questions, discussions? Thank you, Phil.
Thank you.